morning, and a beautiful morning here in the city of Edfu. Small city. We can say this city existed for the beautiful temple of Horus, the falcon deity that the ancient Egyptians worshipped as one of the main 5 gods, and his temple remains to be very well preserved. It's considered again the best preserved temple from the ancient world. And this is like the main street in town. That's the market, the vegetable market coming to the left side over here. That's that street to the left. We are heading to the temple. The bus will drop us off outside the temple. So, here we are visiting the temple of Edfu. Edfu dedicated to the falcon deity Horus. We see him here on the front wall of the temple with his wife goddess Hathor behind him. The temple over here that we visit is built under the rule of a Greek family of kings called the Ptolemies. So starting from this one and onwards, we are not seeing Egyptian temples built by Egyptian kings. We are seeing Egyptian temples built under the Greek rule, still though they were built by the hands of the Egyptians, but under Greek rule. What happened here, if you remember, Alexander conquered Egypt in the year 332 BC, and his policy was to become an Egyptian, goes Egyptianized. So for the Egyptians, they will consider him one of their own pharaohs, and they did. To the very right, that's the king Ptolemy XIII, the last king who made his addition. The last addition to the temple here was Ptolemy XIII, the famous Ptolemy who was married to his sister Cleopatra VII, the famous Cleopatra, like Elizabeth Taylor in the movie. We had 7 in total. The famous one was the 7th. He's shown there as if he's slaying his enemies before the gods of the temple, and that's the typical victory scene, and as if the king here is dedicating his victory over his enemies to the gods of the temple. While up on top, he is presenting his different gifts and offerings to the different gods worshipped by people of Edfu over here. The idea of Alexander was to say that his grandmother was Egyptian, and that Egyptians would consider he's got the Egyptian blood and like him, and they did. Next, after the death of Alexander, his best friend called Ptolemy took over, became a ruler of Egypt, and eventually got independent with ruling Egypt from the Macedonian Empire. And Ptolemy followed the same policy of Alexander, becoming Egyptianized. And he started the process of adding to the Egyptian temples and rebuilding the Egyptian temples, showing himself on the walls of the temple, and so as the rest of the Ptolemies. 15 of them, that Ptolemy's family, 15 Ptolemies ruled Egypt from the year 323 BC when Alexander the Great died until the year 30 BC when Egypt fell under the Roman rule. During those years, Ptolemies built and rebuilt many temples. All the ones we'll see next are built under the rule of the Ptolemies, starting from this one and onwards. So here's the king showing himself slaying his enemies before the gods of the temple, Horus and his wife Hathor, and of course dedicating the victory. Up above the entrance is the cornice there, and you see on it the figure of the solar disk with 2 wings, and that color there, the blue and white, is part of the original color that used to be all over the walls of this temple. So this temple was all painted. Most of the color is gone, except for little bits here and there that will give us an idea about what colors were here. The winged solar disk, and the solar disk has the 2 cobra snakes around his side. The 2 cobra snakes are 2 goddesses named Nokhbet and Wadjet. Sometimes we see them in the form of 2 cobra snakes. Sometimes we see them in the form of 2 ladies, 2 goddesses in human forms. They are the goddesses who guard the north and south. And Egyptians imagined the sun travels from east to west. So the sun god is protecting an axis of east to west. But those 2 cobras around him will look after the north and south. Down by the gate over there, around the 2 sides of the gate, we have the statues of Horus. They are from black granite in his complete form as a falcon, as we can see him over there. And missing though the crowns. There used to be the crowns of the north and south over the head of Horus there. When the Egyptians built a temple, of course they're building that as a home for the gods. So it must be the most beautiful home. What would the most beautiful home look like? It is a house normally that has balconies and terraces overlooking a big garden area, surrounded by walls, and on an island. When they came to build temples, they built them to represent all these things. So there is the inner sanctuary in the very innermost part of the temple, which represents the home or the house itself, where the god or the goddess lived. They would have a golden statue of the god or the goddess of the temple inside the sanctuary. Facing the sanctuary will be one or two other halls, normally empty halls but decorated with beautiful offering scenes. These represent the balconies or the terraces of the house. Then one or two halls full of columns. These halls represent the garden of the house of the god. But if they plant trees over here, trees are not eternal, while the house of the god must be. The thing they used to believe is going to live to eternity was the stone. So they replicated the trees by stone columns. So the columns we see in a hall of columns actually represent trees. The capitals are going to be floral and plant different kinds of plants and flowers, making the beautiful capitals of the columns. So this represents the garden of the house of the god. Then the walls surrounding the temple will be representing the walls of the house. But what about water? We're not on an island over here. When we are not naturally on an island, they would surround the temple with a thick mud brick wall like this one. So this wall represents the waters around the house of the god as if on an island, and it was built in a wavy style and had the wavy top for that. So this is a temple and the different halls of it and what they represent. When they worship any of their gods, they worshipped each one of these gods as representing a certain power from the great powers of the sun god. So each god represents one of his powers. So there was always the general overall dedication of all temples to the main god, who is the sun god. And they wanted then to see the sun god in the temples in his most beautiful form. What was the most beautiful they had seen of the sun? The most beautiful is when they see the sun rising, coming up from between two mountains. This is the most beautiful scene of the sun. So they made the front walls of the temple look like the two mountains that the sun is going to shine through over the temple. And most of the temples in Egypt have the access from east to west. So we would see the sun coming through them. Let's walk together inside. Let's head over there. Here, the first court we are in is the widest court. The furthermore we will keep going inside, every next court is narrower than the other before. So a temple looks like a pyramid that is laid on its side. When we go inside, we'll notice that the roof of the first hall is higher than the next, then the next, then the next. So it goes gradually, again like the pyramid laid on the side. And the ground goes with a slight slope towards the inner sanctuary. Why? Because the pyramid shape indicated the existence of the sun god, and also there was always the general overall dedication of all the temples to that god then. So they built the temples to look like pyramids, but like laid on their side. A later king will come and add another extension, and another by another king, until the temple is finished. It will be used for 200, 300, 400 years until the building starts collapsing and gets old. So a later king will come and starts to restore the older parts, which are normally the innermost parts, because always the additions are towards the outside. Over a few hundred years, the temple has been rebuilt. And that keeps repeating throughout our history. And we would not know, for example, how many times this temple was rebuilt. If there is a wall with a good or in a good condition, and what they do is leave that wall like it is, and they restore the rest of the damaged parts around us. We have cartouches here that carry names of kings of the 5th royal dynasty. That's 4,300 years ago. So we would know that the temple was here 4,300 years ago. Was it there before or not? That's what we don't know. What we know of best, though, is what we are currently looking at. And this is the last reconstruction of the temple under, again, rule of the Ptolemies. And that last reconstruction took place between the years 237 BC until the year 57 BC, just 1 year before Julius Caesar arrives to Egypt. That's what we are looking at now. The capitals here are different. They are more beautiful than those we've seen before in the other temples. For the ancient Egyptians, there were only two sacred plants, the lotus flower and the papyrus plant. So when they made the capitals of columns in their temples, they normally took the shape of the papyrus, sometimes, rare cases, the lotus as well. But when Greeks came over, they didn't have the same understanding of the sacred plants for them that are the lotus and papyrus. So they started putting more beauty in the columns by making mixtures of these different flowers and plants all together, but including within them, of course, the lotus and papyrus as well, so to please the Egyptians. And we start to see the beautiful detail in different capitals. They're all different. They're not the same like in other temples we've been before. They're all different from one another and all represent different kinds of plantation, including the lotus and papyrus, and also the palm reeds are also represented, and many of the trees and plants that grow around here are represented in those beautiful capitals that are around us over here.
So it's like the Greek influence, the Corinthian.
That's the Corinthian, exactly. That's what they call a Corinthian capital. Of course, here is where the legend of Osiris and Isis comes back to our memory. And of course, we went through the legend of Osiris and Isis, and we know that Set, the brother of Osiris, killed him. Isis found him, was conceived by him after he was put together again, and then gave birth to Horus. This temple, we can imagine, was built for the first time to celebrate that victory of the good god Horus over his evil uncle Set, which had all the good meanings for the ancient Egyptians, because Horus is good and Set is evil. So it's the victory of good over evil. In that meaning it was. Let us walk together into the temple. Over here we are inside the greater hall of columns of the temple. We have two of them. This is the bigger, followed by a smaller one. If you look, normally front walls of the temples have the pyramidal shape. So this was the front wall of the temple one day before a later king added this hall. So it looked like a pyramid on the front, but then when they came to make an addition, they widened, filled the gap around, and made the new entrance outside. So these are like stages of additions. All this around us was painted. And if you look right above us here, we'll see down the capital some of the red and yellow and white. We can see some of the red and blue. So this all was painted. Again, most of the color is gone, but there are little bits that would tell us about what was here. Then the beautiful capitals. This is showing the palm reeds, for example. These above us are mixtures of the lotus and the papyrus together, and so on.
Now, in every one of Egyptian historic sites, you'll always find the local guides, the guards who are there to help you out and show you some different angles, bring you on a little walking tour if you like. And, well, the protocol is you give them a little tip, maybe $1 or $2 per person, depending on how much they do for you. If they just pose for a photograph, that's fine. Maybe a little more money if they take you on this extensive tour, the way I was getting the royal treatment here. This is wonderful. These guys were really friendly. And don't worry about it. Even if you don't have any money, that's fine. They are really there to help you out. That's their job. They're employed by the government to watch over these sites, make sure everything's going okay. And it's really fun to have them take you around. They're really happy to. And even if it's a little mysterious, like down into this dark stairway, what's going on down here? Oh, it's the Nilometer. This was a passage that would fill up with water during the floods of the Nile. And that would tell the ancient farmers how much water they could expect and how fertile and productive their growing season would be. The Nilometer, right in the heart of Edfu Temple, with all of these hieroglyphics carved up on the walls, the beautiful columns, handsome guards taking us around. This really adds a nice touch to the visit. And they're happy about it too, otherwise they're just standing around, so they're certainly glad to take you on a little optional walk through the site. There's stairways and hidden passages here in the temple. It's really quite surprising. There's a lot more to this temple than first meets the eye. The best preserved of all the Egyptian temples, Edfu.